Champagne Widows. We are going to be talking to Rebecca Rosenberg. She is the author, and I've got a whole bunch of questions for her. Rebecca, are you there?
I'm here. Peter. I'm so happy to be here.
Are you actually in Santa Rosa?
Yes, I am. Well, I'm in Sonoma Valley, which, as you know, have hundreds of wineries.
Yeah.
So I'm right here in the middle. I'm looking out in the dark vineyards right now.
One of my favorite places to go up in Santa Rosa is the Charles Schulz Museum.
Oh, of course. Yeah, Snoopy wouldn't be the same without Charles Schulz.
Right. Well, listen, my new friend, Rebecca Rosenberg, Turtle will tell you, and Evelyn knows, and you probably don't know much about me because you live there and I'm here. I love champagne. In fact, one of the sponsors of our show is Tattinger Champagne, which Domaine Carneros and all that kind of stuff.
It.
Yeah. But
love it.
Love me some Tattinger, but I also love stories about how champagne was invented and how champagne came to be. And right in my hand, for those of you that are watching on Facebook, but I have a book. It's called Champagne Widows, and I have not read the whole thing, but I do have the newsletter in my hand. And you talk about, well, I was just telling Turtle during the break, one thing I learned, and I thought I knew everything about champagne. One thing I learned about 4 or 5 years ago, I stopped freezing the glass because I love cold champagne, but I learned that if you freeze the glass too much, then you're not tasting the champagne as you should if it's at a certain temperature. And the other thing I learned from you was that if the champagne cork comes out too fast, that means you probably didn't store it right or it wasn't chilled enough, correct?
Yeah, it's amazing, all these things. But I just saw a product today that are little pearls that are chilled that you can put in your champagne, and I really love that idea, so I'm going to check that out.
Are they pearls or marbles? Because I think somebody sent me some marbles one time. Okay.
Yeah, well, they're called pearls. It's a new product, so I'm going to check that out. But the thing about champagne now in Champagne, France, is that they want champagne to be seen as a wine that you will drink all through the meal.
Oh, yes.
And actually, so that not just as an aperitif, and as, you know, my book, Champagne Widows, is about Veuve Clicquot, who was the first woman in Champagne in 1800. And if you think we have it tough today, you ain't seen nothing, because this poor actually she was very wealthy, but she was 20 years old. Her husband dies. She's having to deal with pandemics and mental illness and sexist laws by Napoleon to make her champagne. And it wasn't even legal for her to have a business. So I have a whole new respect for Veuve Clicquot.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah, I've been doing radio for years and years and years down here in LA and Orange County, and I always come up with these quotes. And I think Napoleon had a quote of he needs the champagne in victory, and then needs to console himself in defeat. There's a thousand. Yeah. There's a thousand of them. But just reading what you've written here on the book, she falls in love with her sales manager, Louis Bon. Am I saying that right?
Bon, yeah.
Louis Bon. And then he asked her to marry her. How old was she then?
Let's see. Let me do the math. I think he's about 27, 28. So This is the problem. This is the sad problem. So she was totally in love with her husband at 20, and they had a child, but he had been in wars, Napoleon's wars, and so he had some PTSD. And so he was really struggling. And champagne is not easy, as you know, Peter. Champagne is the hardest thing to make, especially in the 1800s, where they hadn't perfected it, because it goes through 2 fermentations. And in that time, they didn't even have bottle makers that were standard. They had to hand blow, mass blow the bottles. And so the champagne would explode.
Uh-huh.
And so there's one scene in the book where the champagne is exploding in the caves. And if you do any history, you will find out that that happened all the time.
Right.
That they would lose like 20%, or they would lose up to 80% of their entire champagne production due to this expansion. They didn't understand the science of champagne. So she lost her husband, and you'll have to read the book to see how tragically he died. But then, of course, he has an amazing salesman, and this is how Veuve Clicquot really became successful, because this man was so in love with her that he traveled to Russia during Napoleon's 15 years of war with all of Europe. And he traveled to Russia, who Napoleon really wanted to conquer, and he was selling the Veuve Clicquot. So here's Napoleon marching his 500,000 person army across Russia, and he finds Veuve Clicquot there, and he can't believe it, because he has mandated that no champagne leave France. And this is a true fact, that Veuve Clicquot and Napoleon met several times in her father's home, and in fact, Napoleon made him the mayor of Reims, which is the capital of Champagne. So there's a whole history there of Veuve Clicquot and Napoleon, and the book is really about their struggle in Champagne and how she finally actually conquers Napoleon, getting her champagne into Russia when he cannot do the same. So it's kind of fun.
Well, okay. Also, who gets the credit? She was the first, not just female, winemaker to do a rosé, correct?
Yeah.
How did she do that? How did the rosé come to be a part? How did she think, hey, let's do a rosé champagne?
Well, if you read the book, you will see how amazingly forward she was, because at the time, like I was saying, it's against the law for a woman to even own a business. So she is defying the law, and the way she's able to do that is because her father-in-law, her father-in-law gives his permission, for her to own the business. So he pretty much wills it to her. And she decides that she can do whatever it takes. But what she's really most famous for, besides rosé, is that she's famous for whittling, which is, okay, so when you go through the second fermentation in champagne, you get all the dead yeast, and it has to be expelled from the bottle. And no one could figure this out, and this was her biggest problem. And so what she figured out is that if you turn the bottle upside down and at an angle, and she made these tables with, she drilled holes in these tables so that she could put the bottles inside, and then she would turn them so that all that horrible dead yeast would go into the neck of it. And so then it was easy for them to open the cork and get rid of that yeast and re-cork it and add new wine to it. So that's her biggest claim to fame, is that process. And then later, as you said, so rosé, as you know, and all your listeners know, is rosé is just leaving the wine on the skin for longer so it gets the color. Well, she thought that would be beautiful. She did that. And so she did that. So she, once she got her idea that she could really do whatever she wanted, and she became the most successful winery in her time. She just went with it. So I really credit her for that first step in bringing women into the wine industry. And I really love Veuve Clicquot for that. And by the way, I just want to tell everybody, I was saying Veuve Clicquot because that's how we would say it as Americans, but it is not. It's Veuve.
Right.
With love.
Right. We had, I think a couple years ago, I had somebody on from Veuve, and they said Veuve, and I said Veuve and Veuve, and yeah. So we're talking to Rebecca Rosenberg, Champagne Widows, a book, vintage. She also was the first winemaker to produce a vintage champagne.
A vintage.
Right.
Okay, and obviously, and your listeners know what vintage means, but I
don't think they do.
Does that mean it's just old? Does that mean
No. So vintage means that it's from only a certain year. So the way that champagne normally is made, traditionally has been made, is that you will blend every different vineyard and every different year until you get this beautiful taste for your champagne that year, for that harvest. But the first vintage, and this is how it happened, so this is so exciting, and it's in the book. You have to read this. So there was the year of 1813 where there was a giant comet that streaked around the sky of the Earth for an entire year. I can't imagine how exciting that would be. So it's called the Great Comet. You can Google it, the Great Comet of 1813. And in that year, she happened to have the best harvest they had ever had, and she credited it to that spectacular comet. And so she did the first. Yeah, did you know that? You knew that.
No,
that's
that's the picture of her. That's the picture of her on the cork flying. Yes, I get it. Is that?
It's amazing. So that's why on some of the Veuve Clicquot you will see this comet streaming across the sky, because that was her vintage champagne, and that champagne made her worldwide famous, and everybody wanted it. And it was exciting because that was when Napoleon was still in his wars, but that's when he was defeated and she was triumphant. So I love that story, how she really defeated Napoleon in that way.
Okay, we're finishing up now with Rebecca Rosenberg, Champagne Widows. I've got a couple more questions. These are kind of off the book, but what is your favorite champagne quote, Rebecca?
Oh, my goodness. Well, you mentioned it before. It has to be Napoleon. But I will tell you another one. So right now I'm writing my next book, which is going to be about Lily Bollinger. And this is truly my favorite quote. I only drink champagne when I'm happy and when I'm sad. Sometimes I drink it when I'm alone. When I have company, I consider it obligatory. I trifle with it if I'm not hungry, and I drink it when I am. Otherwise, I never touch it, unless I'm thirsty.
Rebecca, do you drink champagne every day?
Oh, no, not every day, but 5 days a week.
What was your
motive? Yes,
go ahead.
My favorite champagne is Breathless Wines, and that is not champagne, but sparkling wine. Right. But it's in Healdsburg, award-winning wine, and you have to try it. Have you had it, Peter?
No, I have not. I know that's Domaine Chandon is right there as well, so I guess they're neighbors. No.
Yeah.
Or is it? No. Am I thinking
well,
Schramsberg?
Jay is up there.
Jay is up there. Okay.
Jay is up there, but I would love to send you some if you'd like it, because they're best friends of mine.
Okay.
And they're actually, the cover of my book is this incredible woman with the cork popping out.
That's what I'm looking at.
Of the bottle. And that is her label. That is Breathless label. And actually, as you put on your website or on your Facebook page, the book Champagne Widows
Yes.
and the award-winning Breathless Wine is available as a gift set this Christmas, and they put it on special for a crazy price of $39. So I'm very happy and proud of that.
Where
That's at breathlesswine.com.
Where and when? Okay, spell that one more for me.
It's breathlesswines.com. So
Okay.
it's BREATHLESS wines.
Got it.
.com.
Got it.
Breathless.
Breathless. And just to finish this up, where, how, and when can our listeners, our podcast listeners, our Facebook listeners, where can they get the book? When can they get the book?
They can get the book at Breathless Wines. The actual paperback they can get right now at Breathless Wines because it's actually pre-publication, but the Breathless Wines has it at the winery, so you can get it there. And it's even more fun if you get it, obviously, with the Brut. Or they can get it on any online ebook seller, including Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Books A Million and all that. So I am actually, the paperback comes out in March, but this is kind of, I did this special for Breathless Wines because they were sweet enough to let me use their label for the amazing cover.
Good. All right, Rebecca Rosenberg, Champagne Widows, thank you for joining us today on the Peter Dills Food Report.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Bye-bye.
that's Rebecca Rosenberg. I'm Peter Dills, and the Turtle and I will be back